Real quick, before we get into the show, I wanted to share a new service called Getita that Ken and I have been using that has made us over $10,000 in Amazon reimbursements. The service requires no monthly subscription, and Getita collects a small percentage of the money they recover for you. It takes less than 5 minutes to set up and works on all Amazon marketplaces. Go to Getita.com, Getida, and enter promo code FTM400. That's FTM for Firing the Man 400 to get your first $400 in reimbursements commission free. How much money does Amazon owe you?
Welcome everyone to the Firing the Man podcast, a show for anyone who wants to be their own boss. If you sit in a cubicle every day and know you are capable of more, then join us. This show will help you build a business and grow your passive income streams in just a few short hours per day. And now your hosts, serial entrepreneurs David Schomer and Ken Wilson.
Welcome, everyone, to the Firing the Man podcast. On today's episode, we have the privilege to interview Catherine Smith. Catherine is the founder and principal consultant of Walton Birch, a web development and digital marketing consulting firm based in Marietta, Georgia. Walton Birch helps small businesses show up credibly and professionally online with expertly built websites, online stores, and marketing campaigns. Since 2019, Catherine has helped dozens of small businesses and entrepreneurs launch and grow their businesses. She was recently named to the Georgia Tech Alumni 40 Under 40 list for her work serving women and underestimated founders. Through her work, she is helping to rethink and invent new ways to support entrepreneurs and small businesses. Welcome to the show, Catherine.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So let's kick it off by sharing with the audience a little bit about your background and what got you to where you are today.
So full disclosure, I never planned to be an entrepreneur. I worked in corporate America for almost 10 years and took what I thought would be a temporary break from corporate America in 2019 and founded Walton Birch during that time. I was dealing with some health issues and I thought I'll take a quick break, not knowing that there was a global pandemic on the way, and have just, kind of stuck with entrepreneurship since then. So my corporate background was in marketing and web development, and I got my MBA in business analytics in 2016. When I started Walton Birch in 2019, I thought I would be in marketing research, but the universe had other plans. And so I fell back on those web development skills, and here we are.
Awesome. And so I've got some web development background from a former life. And so it'll be a fun show. We'll dig into the weeds and get onto it. So what role does a website play for e-commerce businesses that sell primarily on marketplaces like Amazon?
That's a great question. And I get it a lot. So I think the rules for each marketplace platform are different. Some allow you to kind of have standalone websites. Some do not in the interest of competition. But either way, I think that having a website is a good thing. So from a branding perspective, it allows you to tell the story of your brand online. I've seen e-commerce brands that are primarily on marketplace platforms to list new products there or have product information or product specs based on their website, even if they're not selling directly on their website. Also customer service. So when people Google your brand or Google your product and, if they're not able to submit, support tickets through the marketplace platform, your website is another place that they can kind of reach you to ask questions about the product or ask questions about orders as well. So I still think there is a role. There's a space for a website in e-commerce brands, even if you sell primarily on a market.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like your identity, right? Like a marketplace is a sales channel and your website's kind of like your identity. So why do you recommend Shopify to e-commerce entrepreneurs over the other free ones like WordPress and WooCommerce that I use?
Full disclosure, I am a huge Shopify fan. I've been building websites for a while, since way before it was very user-friendly to do so. And as web development platforms kind of came online, they would have a little bit of functionality, but not a ton of functionality, especially not for what you were paying monthly. So I discovered Shopify in 2019 or early 2020, right during the early pandemic perhaps, and was just blown away by the marketing features built into that basic subscription. So for me, as someone that is very interested in creating successful outcomes for small businesses, having like the whole kitchen sink involved in the base subscription, so you're not paying a ton of money a month to get like the tools that you need to be successful, is extremely important. So I'm a huge fan of Shopify because it has those built-in tools to help people be successful. So you're not paying extra for email marketing. You're not paying extra to, have the theme kind of built in with the store. You're not paying extra to have the analytics. You're not paying extra to have the integration with Google Analytics or with Google Merchant Center or with Facebook Marketplace or Meta, I guess. And so all of those integrations and marketing channels and customer management, like the CRM, all of those are built into the basic subscription. So needless to say, I am a huge fan of Shopify over some of those free platforms where the functionality is limited, just because I fully believe that marketing and effective customer management and effective order management are huge parts of being successful in online business.
For the listeners who are not on Shopify, what are the fees? Like, what does it cost? I think you mentioned a basic plan, or there's a premium and plus.
Yeah, so Shopify has a couple different plans now, and they're kind of expanding, but the basic Shopify subscription, I believe, is $39 a month. So like if you literally just log on and you want a store, so an online store, they have a couple of not full store options. So like buy now buttons that aren't full store options, but like the basic store, I believe, is $39 a month. That includes all of the marketing features that I mentioned before. I believe that most e-commerce sellers are going to be okay on the basic plan, especially if you're kind of new to Shopify, especially or new to online selling, and especially if you're not doing, millions of dollars in business or millions of transactions. And so Shopify has there's a basic plan, there's a Shopify plan, and I believe there's Shopify Plus. So there are at least 3, and there may be some additional enterprise options where it's kind of powered by Shopify, but it doesn't have that same Shopify front end. So it scales very well. But if you're if you're an individual that's running a business, for instance, or even a small business, I think for most people that basic Shopify plan is going to be sufficient.
No, that's awesome. And you had mentioned that it comes with a lot of or I don't want to say free, but it comes with all of the marketing, or are they plugins, or what is Shopify call them, or like?
So that's the thing. That's another thing I really like about Shopify. Some of those basic things are built in, so they're native to the platform. So if you're familiar, I guess you are familiar with WordPress, where you get WordPress, and WordPress is like, well, if you want to sell some stuff here, you got to install WooCommerce as a plugin. But Shopify is, at its core, an e-commerce platform. So you don't have to install the e-commerce section. It's built in. So you have built-in product functionality. You have built-in email marketing functionality. And then you can kind of extend that through integration. So an example of an integration would be you can connect your Shopify store to Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. You can connect your Shopify store to YouTube, which I didn't know they had like a special YouTube partnership. So if you're a seller on YouTube now, they have a special partnership with Shopify. You can connect your Shopify store through integrations to the Google Merchant Center to do, things associated with the Google Business Suite and Google Ads and paid search and things like that, so that you can manage all of that from within your Shopify dashboard from these accounts that you already have. And some other integrations would be, and this will be particularly relevant for sellers on Etsy and like WooCommerce, are shipping integrations. So if you have an account with Shippo or Pirate Ship, like those types of platforms, you can bring those accounts with you to Shopify and integrate them in your dashboard. So you're not like logging out of one platform, logging into the other platform. So base functionality is like email marketing, all the product management, the customer and the order management, all of that is built in, but you can extend that to the platforms that you already have, like Facebook and Instagram, or the Meta Suite, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest. If you are a drop shipper, there's a couple of plugins and platforms for that. Print on demand, like all of that is through the integrations.
No, that's awesome. I was sharing with Catherine before the show that in our companies, we have kind of a mix. It's kind of funny. We used to be on Shopify for a couple of them. We migrated over to WordPress, WooCommerce. And so now we're kind of in that we're planning an implementation going back to Shopify. And so I think a lot of the friends in our circle is like Shopify is the king of e-commerce. It's like the queen, whatever you want to look at it, but it's like the best. And so do you think all of the other platforms like WooCommerce are just going to fade out and Shopify is going to stay on top? What do you think is going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, I think that is a good question. It's really hard to make predictions in the tech space, but both Shopify and WooCommerce have been around for a while. So if I had to bet, I would say that both of them will continue being around. And I've seen both of them evolve. And the thing that I think makes Shopify very powerful is that you don't have to have any kind of technical knowledge. You don't have to know what a hosting company is. You don't have to know, what a custom domain is to get on Shopify and start selling. Whereas I think that there are people who either have existing WordPress websites and they're like, listen, I built up a lot of domain authority here. I'm not just going to give that up for a Shopify website and have like a hybrid solution, which I've done one of those recently. I have a client that has a WordPress website from 2008 and was like, I don't want to give up my WordPress website. And also there's not really a good way to migrate all of this content from this WordPress website to Shopify. So there is still a WordPress website and then there's a shop dot, her URL so that she can integrate that Shopify store while keeping the domain authority that she has with her domains. And in that way, WordPress, at least, and Shopify work together very well. So I think that things like that, Shopify is rolling out a new platform to kind of allow for more flexible building, but there are people that have been on, WordPress and other platforms for years or decades now, and they don't necessarily want to give up, what they built there. And there are some features of functionality to WordPress, the kind of open source nature of it. So the ability to kind of create a custom build like that's right size for your organization, whatever that organization looks like, I think that will remain important. So I think that people that have a high level of technical expertise and or in-house web development teams will not shy away from solutions like WordPress. Whereas I think, people that don't have any technical experience or expertise, or people that are running very small and agile teams, or people that just really don't want the hassle of having to manage a website will continue to kind of move towards solutions like Shopify. And I think that both of those platforms clearly differentiate their value proposition to each of those audiences. They will evolve kind of away from each other so that they're not necessarily cannibalizing each other. They're saying like, this is why we are not Shopify, or this is why we're not WordPress and WooCommerce. So I don't think that they'll necessarily go away. I think that they will evolve to kind of match their audiences a little bit better.
No, I like that answer. I definitely agree. Yeah, I think WordPress, I think there's more websites on WordPress than any other platforms on the internet. And
the Android.
Right. But to the point of e-commerce, it was not designed for that. And so it's kind of been molded to that with, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, things like that. Whereas Shopify, I think, was kind of developed just for that. And so you have those, the tools developed just for sellers. So I agree there. And yeah, you're right. Like the websites that we have in our company has been around since 2017, 2018. They have a lot of domain authority. Whereas WordPress, it does really, really good with SEO. And so whereas Shopify, I think they're catching up, but it's not designed for that. And so I like that hybrid solution that you had mentioned, kind of like having the SEO piece of it on WordPress and then maybe the shop over there. That'd be something for a hybrid solution for someone that wanted to migrate over. But for anybody new, your recommendation is just go directly to Shopify and start from there, correct?
If you're strictly e-commerce, if you don't have any type of content and content is not unusually important to you, absolutely, I think Shopify is a great solution. Shopify has rolled out like a headless functionality, I'm going to call it. It's not really a platform. It's not really a feature. It's like it's headless. So which will allow Shopify to be kind of embedded in other types of context. So that's a TBD. I haven't had a lot of time to explore it. So I think that could be the thing that we're looking for, where you're saying like, listen, I have a lot of content and the content is important and the SEO is important, but the e-commerce is also very important. And it's really important to have a robust kind of e-commerce support system. I think that new headless functionality is going to kind of serve that purpose, but it remains to be seen. It could take off and that will be what Shopify is in 5 years, or it could flop and Shopify could go back to its core offering, but we'll see.
Yeah, sure. Now, does Shopify play nicely with Google Analytics, and there's a new GA4 out now? So does it all play nicely, and have you used a bunch of those features?
Yeah, so Shopify has I'm gonna call it native. It may not be native, but it's darn close if it's not native integration with Google, like the whole entire Google suite. So the Google Merchant Center, Google Analytics, Google Search Console, so that you can run ads, you can do paid search, you can manage the Google My Business and the reviews that come along with that. You can have your products featured in the shopping section all through just your Google connection. So as close to natively supported as it can be, Shopify has that built in, which is great because you don't have to click back and forth between the Search Console and the Analytics and the Google Merchant Center and the Google My Business. Well, it's all Google Merchant Center now, but you don't have to click back and forth between those things. And you're able to, get that same kind of Google Analytics reporting associated with your store, because as much as I love Shopify Analytics on the basic plan, there remains to be seen, a little bit of functionality functionality. So on the upgraded tiers, the reporting is a little bit robust, but I don't necessarily think that some of the sellers that are coming into e-commerce I think that's a little bit overkill for especially new or smaller sellers. And so I think that Google Analytics can definitely still fill that gap for Shopify stores, at least until, it makes sense for you to upgrade to the plans with the more reporting.
No, that's good. Google Analytics is probably the de facto standard for finding out how things are functioning and how to improve. And so for someone that's, say, they're listening to the show, they've got a brand, they're selling on Etsy or Amazon, but they don't have their website yet. And so you're recommending Shopify. So what are some things that they can do to, is it really easy to build their own shop? Is there themes? Can you kind of maybe step 1, 2, and 3 of get them moving in the right direction?
Sure. I actually get that question a lot. I think there's a lot of concerns with the way that kind of fees and competition occur on marketplace platforms, especially if you're creating a product that you're either kind of making by hand, or you really just want better margins on it. It's really kind of difficult to get margins sometimes on marketplace platforms because there is so much competition. And so I get the question a lot of, how do I do I need to either have one or the other? So do I need to have an Etsy store or a Shopify store or, sell on Walmart or Shopify, or can I have both? And so to that, I say that the process of migrating, so moving your entire store from a marketplace platform, I'm going to use Etsy because I do Etsy the most often. So migrating from Etsy to Shopify is relatively simple. You can actually export all of your Etsy orders and into a CSV, like a literal file, and then upload them into Shopify. And so they make that very easy to just kind of take your products and move them. However, there is a little bit of setup on the Shopify end. So you absolutely need to install a theme, which you didn't have to do with Etsy. So the theme just controls the look and feel. You have to determine what color you want your website to be. You have to, add some photos and, images and text and content to the website. So you have to actually build a website to kind of go along with that. But in terms of transferring the products over, that part is easy. Another challenge that I've seen marketplace sellers kind of experience moving to Shopify is that for marketplaces, the way that you optimize product listings to be seen on marketplaces is a lot different. So with Etsy specifically, and I'm using Etsy just because I get a lot of questions about that, it's essentially kind of keyword spam. And whereas Shopify is more like a website on the web. So instead of just having keyword spam, you have to actually kind of create content for your website to help it be found by search engines. So in 100% of cases coming from Etsy specifically, you will have to optimize your product descriptions and the other content for your website for a Shopify store in order for it to be found by website. So SEO is a thing, it has to happen. You will have to invest in it. Just be prepared for that. Also updating the look and feel of your store and adding additional images. So lifestyle images, not necessarily product images. And I think that you have to create a good experience for the customers coming to your website. So it is a store, but it is also a website. So those are the two things that you have to kind of think about when you're moving from a marketplace platform to your own platform. But that said, if your platform allows it, so if Etsy, for example, allows you to sell your products on your own website in addition to Etsy, I would definitely leave a few of your more popular or kind of high volume items on Etsy because it does have that inherent kind of discoverability. The way that Etsy search is set up, it's a lot easier for people to find your products. And so if you have a store where you're having 1 or 2 products on there and people say, oh, that's really cool. Let me Google that name and see if there's an actual website. Then you can offer other products on your website that are either higher margin products or products that cost a little bit more for shipping or products that are just not priced as competitively, because on marketplace platforms, you tend to have to price products pretty competitively. So answer the question you didn't ask. I absolutely think that where your marketplace allows it, you can have a marketplace store and a Shopify store. Migrating from a marketplace to a Shopify store is usually pretty simple, but there's a little bit of setup required to create a positive customer experience and make sure that your store gets found by search engines and by people who are looking for it.
Fair enough. No, that's a great answer. And it doesn't sound like it's too complicated, but definitely some steps there. And if you're already on a marketplace, you had mentioned, you can repurpose a lot of that stuff. Probably need to do a little bit more SEO research and apply it to to your website, but images and copy and stuff, you can use a lot of that. So now let's fast forward, let's say 6 months. The seller, let's say they were on Etsy primarily. They created a Shopify store. Let's say they sell jewelry. They sell 5 different kinds of jewelry. They created a Shopify store. And now they're selling jewelry. Sales are starting to come in. They've got some data flowing in now. One of the things that I really focus on is conversion rate. So I think e-commerce conversion rate sometimes gets overlooked, and I think it's a massive KPI to keep an eye on. What are some suggestions that you make to your clients on, if they're 6 months in or a year and they've got a bunch of data to look at now, what are a few things that they can do to increase conversion rate?
Oh, that's a great question. There are a lot of things that go into conversion rate. So for example, it could be that 1 million people are coming to your website because they saw you on the local news or they saw you on like a TikTok. Like 97% of them are bouncing because they weren't interested in buying your product, but 1% of 1 million is still a lot of people. I think that it's kind of relative, but if you're getting pretty steady traffic, that's the first thing that I would look at. So if the traffic is fairly steady, given kind of your understanding of how your industry or seasonality goes for your product. So if your traffic is pretty steady, but you're noticing that your conversion rate is low, so there are a lot of people coming, but nobody's buying, the very first thing that I would check would be for technical errors. Shopify does a lot to kind of eliminate the technical error aspect from your store, but I've seen it, and we've all seen it like on like TikTok and Instagram and things like that, where either somebody left their store in test mode, so all of their products were free, or they did like calculated shipping, and shipping is showing up as like $57, or they only have local shipping turned on, so it's telling people outside of your state that they can't check out. So check for technical errors first. And with Shopify, there are a few things that could be kind of standing in the way from that perspective. Other than that, from a conversion rate perspective, and I think this is unique to Shopify, and my only criticism, well, not my only criticism, but one of my criticism of Shopify is like, it's super easy to build stores, but it's super easy to build the same store. A lot of Shopify stores look the same. Like you'll see it and be like, that's a Shopify store. So in that instance, your customer doesn't have a great online experience. And so I definitely think that spending a little time and energy to create a great experience, or not just listing your products all on a single page, especially if there are more than like 10 of them, is important for conversion rate optimization. So give people the opportunity to buy the product, but also kind of lead them down the path. So give them the product information, give them some high resolution photos and like a 360 image of the product. If you're selling something large like furniture, do one of those little 3D model thingies where they can see how it fits into their house. Like give them a great buying experience so that they A, spend a lot of time on the site, and then B, are kind of led down the path to say, oh yes, this is absolutely something that I want or something that I need. Allow them to buy it. So make sure your shipping is calculating correctly. Make sure you don't have local delivery as your only fulfillment option. Just make sure that your store is not in test mode, for instance, and that it accepts credit cards and things like that. So provide a good experience, make the buying part easy. So give people an opportunity to add to cart or buy now, and then make sure your checkout works. I think those are the three biggest things. Those are not the only things, but I think those are the three most common things that I have to look at from a Shopify store perspective when it comes to conversion rate optimization.
No, excellent. I really like that. I like how you had mentioned, taking the visitor or the customer through a path or a journey to the product. Like sometimes I go to websites and they're just cluttered with everything. It's like, where do I even start? And then, your bounce rates go up, right? And so, kind of like holding their hand. Some of the best ones I've seen were when you land on the homepage and they have more than one product, they ask you a question or like, are you looking to research or are you looking to buy? And then it takes you directly. I think those are brilliant. The other thing you said I wanted to highlight was you had mentioned, and this is something on the psychology piece of it. I think with online purchasing, I think the last statistic was 2022. I think e-commerce had 15% penetration in all of retail. And I think we're looking to go to 20 in the next couple of years. One of the things that stops people from buying online is that they can't touch an item, feel an item, like they can't picture it in their room. And you had mentioned that the 3D model of a couch, that's a perfect example because, you could just go into your living room, take a picture of it, throw it up there and put the couch on there and see what it's going to look like I think that's brilliant. Kind of like getting through that gap of, hey, what is it going to look like, stuff like that. So those are great examples. One follow-on question that I have, and I think we learn the most from our mistakes. And so, from you working with a bunch of clients, like what are like some of the top 2 or 3 mistakes that people make whenever they start building their website or get into e-commerce?
Two of the biggest mistakes: 0 product images, or especially in print on demand, like the default images that come with the product, just not changing those or not including any images, and no product descriptions. The product is out here. It's just kind of like, hey, Do you want to buy it or not? I need so much more information. I need a size chart. I need a 3D model of what was fit in my house. I need a comparison. I call it the Wish effect. And this is because it happens on Wish. You're just like, oh, this chair's like $2. I'm going to buy it. And then the chair's the size of my hand. And you're like, so those are the two biggest mistakes that I've seen. Because if there are no product descriptions, if there are no words on your website, obviously it's not showing up in search engine results anyway. So if you do somehow manage to get people to your website, no product descriptions gives them zero information about does this fit them? Is this the size that they're expecting it to be? Is it otherwise what they are expecting it to be? So those are big mistakes. And then also little known mistake, not updating your website or your product. So this is kind of complicated to explain. So search engines reward websites just generally for updating the content frequently. So if it goes stale, they're just going to say listen, this is not relevant from a search engine perspective. And I know that seems kind of contrary for e-commerce sites because products should theoretically be always relevant. But if you're not adding new products or updating your product descriptions, you will see a drop in your website traffic, organic traffic anyway, and engagement. And then also, if you're not reaching out to your customers, so Shopify has built-in email marketing, you really just don't have an excuse not to be talking to people. So, to the extent that you can, reach out to people, tell them what's going on with your company, tell them, what new products that you have, and, occasionally do promotions. I don't necessarily recommend promotions all the time for everybody, but, to the extent that you can, use those marketing features to engage with your customers. And so sometimes people come to me and they're like, I've had great success with my website. I have a steady clientele, but my views and purchases have dropped off dramatically. What can I do? And my very first thing is are you sending emails? Have you talked to people in a while? And that for me is the low-hanging fruit in terms of trying to do, conversion rate optimization or get people re-engaged with your brand and your products, is reach out to them, talk to them. The ones that are subscribed to your email list, send them an email, even if it's just an update with what's going on with the company. And of course, update your website. So update your photos, update your product descriptions, add some blogs. So make sure that the date stamps on your websites are being updated periodically. So I guess those would be my big three. And I'm going to put the first two in two different categories because they are important. Images, product images. You have to have product images. It's so important. I'm going to list it in its own category. Product images, descriptive product images. And then second would be product descriptions, actual words, at least 300 of them, but more, actual sentences and descriptions of what the product provides. And then, of course, engaging with your customer clientele and updating your website on a regular basis. I would put that into the kind of the same category of staying relevant, basically, in front of mind for your customers.
No, I like those all, and definitely they'll all move the needle. Email marketing, updating your product descriptions, having images that relevant and updated. I like that. And funny story, when you said that earlier, it triggered a memory of mine. I got wished, if you will, 2 years ago for Christmas. I was buying my kids Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I always buy my kids a book for Christmas, and I saw it. I was shopping on Amazon, and I bought 4 of them, and they came in, and they were pocket-sized editions. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I went to the Amazon listing, and sure enough, on the third image, it showed 3. And I'm like, oh my God, because I just clicked through it. So it happens
more often than now, it seems. But yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. I'm just glad I didn't buy a couch or something and then I get a little bucket couch. We've covered a lot. Shopify, how to start it, Shopify's the premium, how to start a Shopify store, what not to do. Are there any other topics that I didn't ask you that you want to share with the audience today?
I'm trying to think about questions that I get frequently. I think the theme thing, especially for people coming from WordPress WooCommerce, is usually daunting. They're like, do I need a developer, designer? Do I need to buy a theme? And no, you absolutely don't need to buy a theme. Shopify at any given time has 12 free themes kind of involved, and they're pretty user-friendly. If you're not a web developer, you're going to spend a little bit of time kind of clicking around and making things look the way that, you want it to look, but you can absolutely do this with zero technical ability. If you can use, a PowerPoint or like any kind of image processing Word document type thing, you can use the Shopify page builder. So that's not something that you need to worry about. You will absolutely need to start from scratch. That's not something that you can import, especially from like a WooCommerce. So that's a question that I get asked about a lot. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else to add.
So yeah, if you are planning on migrating to Shopify or start your own Shopify store, there's free things you can use. So don't have to worry about that. So Catherine, we put all of our guests through the ringer and we call it the fire round. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. What is your favorite book?
Oh, The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee. It talks about cross-racial mobilizing around non-racial issues. And I think it's super helpful in terms of thinking about creating equity and equality and opportunity.
Awesome. I'm going to put that on my list. What are your hobbies?
I have lots of hobbies. Paper crafting is one. So I create 3D paper sculptures from like cardstock, which is exciting. Also, I love like diamond painting and rhinestoning things. So little small detail-oriented tasks like that.
No, that sounds fun. What is one thing that you do not miss about working for the man?
Ooh, open layout floor plans. Generally, working in an office was just not great for me. I am a person that kind of needs silence to be able to hear my own thoughts. And so the switch to open layout floor plans was really difficult for me in the workplace. And just generally working with a ton of people just wasn't it for me.
I agree with you. I had a job once where the company I was working for switched to the 3-foot cubicle walls. And then you could literally see I was like, this is not good. Not okay. All right, last one. What do you think sets apart successful e-commerce entrepreneurs from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
Persistence. Like you have to show up every day and do at least one thing that gets you closer to where you need to be. And patience. I guess persistence and patience. It's seasonal. There are a lot of people out here kind of doing the same thing. And despite the stories of people going viral, I don't think that is the typical experience. And not a whole lot of people talk about that. So I think showing up every day consistently, doing one thing to get you closer to where you want to be, being patient and looking for those slow and steady results is the difference, because it will absolutely take a while. And sometimes you will absolutely go viral, but you have to put in the work to be prepared for when that happens.
So, Catherine, before the show, we went over an offer to the guest. You want to share that with the guest?
My company, Walton Birch, provides website audits. So if you have a question, if you're just like, hey, am I doing the right thing? Or like, will this be a very difficult website to, migrate or transfer? We do free website audits. So you can reach out to us through our website, which is waltonbirch.com. Sign up for a free audit or just sign up to get some time on my calendar. I'd be happy.
That's awesome and really appreciate it. I want to thank you for being a guest on the Firing the Man podcast and looking forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Before you go, we wanted to share a new service that Ken and I have been using called Getita that has made us over $10,000 in Amazon reimbursements. The service requires no monthly subscription, and Getita collects a small percentage of the money they recover for you. It takes less than 5 minutes to set up and works on all Amazon marketplaces. Go to Getita.com, Getida.com, and enter promo code FTM400. That's FTM for Firing the Man 400 to get your first $400 in reimbursements commission free. How much money does Amazon owe you?